Hey everybody, it's AJ for Disney Food Blog. Today we're going to talk about something that everybody has to deal with when they're in Disney World, and that is Disney World transportation. We're going to talk about pros and cons. We're also going to speak to the recent development that I think many of us are a little upset over. So let's get started with that first. Here we go. A little while ago, Disney announced that overnight guests at the resort hotels are now going to have to pay for parking. Up until this time, it's always been free to park at Disney Resort Hotels, Disney World Resort Hotels. Over in Disneyland, they've been paying for parking for a while. So, as you can imagine, everybody was really upset about this, including us. I mean, we are really mad. Those parking costs can add up to the same amount that you'd spend on another park ticket for a park day or even another night in the hotel. We're talking about $20 plus at deluxe resorts at this point, so it's really expensive now to park at your Disney Resort Hotel. So we know you guys are pretty mad. We're pretty mad. Just one of those things Disney does, those changes that we have to roll with. But we wanted to talk a little bit about why they might be doing this. We think there's two reasons that Disney might be doing this. The first is bottom line. Of course, it's going to be income. It's going to be money that they weren't making before. But second, and this is one people maybe aren't thinking about as much, is that by discouraging people to have their own car on property, that also is going to discourage them from leaving property. So this is probably very prominent in Disney's mindset, is that if we don't have personal cars on property anymore, then people will be less likely to leave and go to other theme parks in the area, go to other restaurants in the area, go to other locations in the Central Florida area. So if you don't have your personal car and you're using only Disney transportation, you're going to stay on Disney property more often and spend your money here. So I think that's something that they're also considering, is keep them on property as much as possible, which again, I guess that leads to bottom line. So maybe it is all about the bottom line. But for those of us who always used to bring our cars on property, some of us maybe are not going to be doing that anymore. Now, I know many of you love Disney transportation. I get it. It's really efficient. It's really relaxing. You don't have to think about anything anymore in terms of getting yourself from here to there. You just have to sit back and relax and let Disney take you there. But a lot of us did like to bring our cars. We thought it was maybe a little bit faster way to get around. We could get between here and there a little bit quicker. So I know some of you love to have your cars on property, and some of you love Disney World transportation. There are pros and cons to both. Now that people are probably going to be leaving their cars at home a little more often to avoid these parking charges, we wanted to do a video talking about Disney World transportation and the pros and cons of each thing that's available to you. So let's take a look at some of that, as many of us will be using Disney transportation a little bit more often than we had in the past, possibly. So let's start with the buses. These are the most common. Buses run from every Disney resort to every Disney park, including Disney Springs. They do not run between resorts, just FYI. So if you want to take a bus from resort to resort, you're going to have to take one to a park and then get on another bus to go to your second resort. So the pros of Disney World buses. The biggest pro is probably the drop-off spot at the parks. When you get dropped off by a Disney bus, you're going to be close to the main gates of the park, so you're not going to have to walk a long distance, which is definitely a con of driving your own vehicle and parking in the parking lots, especially in the Magic Kingdom. When you go to the Magic Kingdom, the buses drop you off right up there at the front. You don't have to stop at the Transportation and Ticket Center and make your way over via monorail or boat to the Magic Kingdom, which is a great bonus of the buses. Another bonus of the buses is that they go everywhere. Again, you can get anywhere on Disney property via bus. So some of the cons to those Disney buses, they are very subject to how crowded Disney World is. And even though they try to put enough buses into service to make sure that they're accommodating all the crowds, those buses in the morning when the parks are first opening and at night when the parks are closing get so crowded, and you may be in a line so long that you have to wait for one or two or even sometimes three buses to go before you get on a bus. And even then you're going to be standing room only and crowded. That can be really rough. So if you are going to ride the buses, try to not ride them when everyone else is riding them. If you ride in the middle of the day, it's a much nicer experience, but that all depends on your park touring style. This brings me to another con, is sometimes the buses don't run as frequently during the day. So if you are not one of those people that goes to rope drop and stays until after the fireworks, it can be a little bit longer for a bus to come pick you up at your resort or to come get you from a park. I remember I was in Magic Kingdom with my son. We wanted to leave the park at about 10 o'clock in the morning. We had done everything we wanted to do and we wanted to leave, and we went to try to get a bus, and we were told by a cast member that there really aren't that many buses running in the middle of the day, or at least at that that particular time in the morning, and we were going to have to wait for quite some time. He actually had to call a bus to come and get us. So that can be a bit of a con with the buses. And of course, the waits can be difficult with buses. You never know how long you're going to have to wait. And if you just missed a bus, it's going to take 20 minutes plus for another bus to come at a regular interval time frame. Buses can also get rerouted depending on crowds. So it may take you a little bit longer to get from point A to point B on a bus if they aren't going certain directions because Disney doesn't want there to be too much traffic in one area. So buses can get rerouted and it might take you a little bit longer to get to a park. Doesn't happen often, but every once in a while when the crowds are high and a lot of people are in particular roads, they can get rerouted. In that circumstance, if you're taking an Uber or your own vehicle, you would probably get to a park faster. All right, next let's talk about boats. Boats are a great and relaxing way to get around Walt Disney World. Boats run between resorts and parks, but only in certain areas. So you're going to be able to get boats from Magic Kingdom area resorts like Contemporary, Wilderness Lodge, Grand Floridian, Polynesian, Fort Wilderness. You're going to be able to get boats around Disney Springs. So there we're talking about Old Key West, Saratoga Springs, and Port Orleans, Riverside, and French Quarter. You're going to be able to get boats over in the Epcot resort area. So Yacht Club, Beach Club, Boardwalk, Swan and Dolphin. Those are the ones that go between Epcot, Hollywood Studios, and the surrounding resorts. So those are really the only places you're going to be able to get boats to and from where you're going. So the pros of boats is that it's a very relaxing ride. It's very nice to be out there on the water. And the bonus is you're going to a Disney park, so that's great. Usually the boats are not going to be too crowded as well because they only let so many people on those boats. So the cons for the boats are always going to be the waits. These don't tend to run as frequently. There aren't as many of them in service. And so if you miss a boat, you are definitely waiting at least 20 minutes till the next boat comes, most likely. And the locations as well. Boats don't go everywhere. Boats only go to Magic Kingdom and Disney Springs. And of course, they cross in the World Showcase Lagoon, and they also run between the Epcot resorts and Hollywood Studios. So you're never going to be able to take a boat to Animal Kingdom, for instance. And you're also never going to be able to take a boat from, say, Pop Century over to Disney Springs because there just aren't connected waterways. So that's not going to happen. So you have to be more careful with your locations there. Boats may take a little bit longer as well because they have to slow down. For instance, if you were going to decide between taking the monorail or the ferry boat over to the Magic Kingdom, the boat might take a little bit longer depending on how the monorails are running. Speaking of the monorails are some of the most iconic ways to travel around Walt Disney World, but they don't go very many places. So monorails right now are going to take you around the Magic Kingdom resorts and to Magic Kingdom. So Contemporary, Polynesian, Grand Floridian, and right over there to Magic Kingdom. They do not go to Wilderness Lodge or Fort Wilderness. And the monorail also runs to Epcot from those resorts. It's currently the two places it runs. It goes to the Epcot Transportation and Ticket Center, the Magic Kingdom resorts around World Showcase Lagoon, and Magic Kingdom. Pros for the monorail are going to be that it's very quick. Those monorails run quickly. They have shorter routes and they have more of them in service, so they're going to be there more quickly. So if you miss a monorail, it's not the end of the world. The next one's probably going to come pretty quickly. Now the cons for the monorail, of course, are going to be crowds. Again, same as the buses. It can be standing room only and you're shoved in there with 50 strollers, and it can be nightmarish, especially if the monorail decides to, stop working in the middle of its route. And so you're hanging in midair on the monorail and it's super crowded and it's awful, which has happened to me many times. The crowds can be pretty frustrating. Again, monorails only go to minimal places, not necessarily a con, but it's something to remember when you're making your plans. And also, since they have added security stations to get onto the monorail, because the monorails take people directly to parks, they've set up the security stations before you get on the monorail. So this is a kind of a con if you're just resort hopping. If you're not actually going to the park, but you're resort hopping between the Magic Kingdom resorts, so Contemporary, Polynesian, and Grand Floridian, each time you get on the monorail, you're going to have to go through security, which is a little bit frustrating. So that can take some extra time to plan for. Okay, on to the Skyliner. The Skyliner is currently not in service, but it is in progress. They are building it, and it will be available for Disney World guests pretty soon, in the next couple years. This is basically a gondola that's best thing I can liken it to is a ski lift. So it's going to be a gondola that's going to run between Epcot, Hollywood Studios, Art of Animation and Pop Century Resorts, and the new DVC Resort. It's going to be a different mode of transportation that's going to be able to take you between those locations. I don't have any real pros and cons for this one yet because it's not in service, but just be aware that again, Disney is adding new transportation options. I think they anticipate that more people will be staying on property and be using Disney transportation. And so that one's coming right up very soon. And then finally, minivans. They've added the minivan service, which is operated by Lyft. So it's basically your personal driver. So you're going to go on the Lyft app, get your minivan, and FYI, this is currently only for people staying in deluxe resorts. But once you launch the minivan part of the Lyft app, you can use it wherever you are in Disney World at any time. So if you go and stay at the beach club and launch your minivan app there while you're staying there, you can then go stay at Pop Century and use a minivan on your next visit. Once it's launched on your app, you can use it anytime. So the pros to these minivans are it's personal service. You're going to get someone pick you up and your family and take you exactly where you need to go. So it's very, very fast, very quick. There's car seats here. They're really nice, high-end car seats. They're kept very clean. They switch them out on a regular basis. You don't have a gross, kind of rental car seat. This is really nice for families trying to get around Disney World quickly, especially if you're going someplace when the buses aren't running yet. So those early morning reservations. The cons to the minivans, of course, are going to be cost. They've raised the cost again. They're now $25 a ride. These take you anywhere in Walt Disney World, which is great. But if you go multiple places in a day, that cost is going to really add up. If you only go to the park and home from the park each day, then that could be comparable to a rental car, depending on how long you're staying. But if you go multiple places, that minivan cost can add up. And also, because this is a new service, sometimes there aren't enough drivers out. And so sometimes the demand is high and it takes 15 minutes or so for a driver to get to you, sometimes even longer. So you need to be prepared to wait a little bit if you're going at a high demand time. Same thing as Uber or Lyft, you get the same situation. Luckily, there aren't, surcharges for those busy times yet with minivans. So overall, that's the situation on transportation in Walt Disney World. Again, we are frustrated that they have decided to charge for parking in the resorts as well. They've been doing it for a long time in Disneyland, so I guess it just sort of was on the docket to come up anyway. But let us know in the comments your thoughts. What transportation do you like to take in Disney World? Do you always bring a car or do you always take Disney transportation? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments and keep this a nice, interesting, valuable, and useful conversation. And we'd love if you could give us a like or a subscribe if you like this video, if you'd like to see more videos from Disney Food Blog all about food and other details and information about Disney parks and resorts. Thanks for listening and thanks for watching. This is AJ for Disney Food Blog, and we'll see you real soon.